Welcome to The Explainer. Let's jump right in, because today we're unpacking a fascinating and honestly absolutely crucial topic tucked inside the global real estate services industry. We're talking about a sector that is literally the backbone of the global economy. I mean, think about it. Every major skyscraper, every sprawling commercial complex, every industrial park you drive by, these assets are governed, managed, and traded by a highly specialized group of real estate service firms. So we are looking at a multi-billion-dollar industry that relies entirely on complex transactions and high-stakes valuations. But beneath the polished surface of these glass and steel deals, well, there's a structural tension, and it's one that investors and regulators are watching very, very closely. To really understand this tension, we first have to look at the business model of these massive real estate firms. The entire industry is designed around convenience. These firms offer a truly staggering, comprehensive umbrella of interconnected services to their clients. Say you own a massive commercial building. You can hire one single firm to do your property management, which is everything from leasing to tenant relations to building security. You can use their brokerage team to facilitate a sale. You can use their specialized advisors for property appraisals. You can even hire them for sustainability services, navigating energy efficiency ratings or managing your utility data. It is the ultimate one-stop shop. And for a property owner, having that centralization is just incredibly efficient.
That efficiency, however, leads us to a very serious question. What happens when one company does it all? When a single organization is responsible for leasing a property, appraising its value, and brokering its sale, we suddenly find ourselves looking at a dangerous breeding ground for hidden conflicts of interest. The very structure that makes these firms so convenient in the first place, it creates scenarios with a remarkably high risk of negligence and ethical friction.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our agenda for today to break this down. 1. Real estate's hidden conflicts. 2. The dual agency dilemma. 3. The appraisal trap. 4. The cost of negligence. And 5. Transparency and managing risks. Let's get to it.
Section 1. Real estate's hidden conflicts. The breeding ground for ethical dilemmas.
Section 2. The dual agency dilemma. Playing both sides of the fence.
Look, because these assets are so incredibly valuable, the whole real estate business relies heavily on the loyalty and objective advice of its partners. But managing that trust, that gets incredibly tricky when a firm decides to play both sides. According to industry sustainability and accounting standards, a massive area of risk is what's called dual agency. Some people call it dual representation. This is officially defined as transactions in which the entity represents both the buyer and the seller in the exact same real estate brokerage transaction. I want you to imagine a really high-stakes court case for a second. Now imagine the exact same lawyer trying to represent both the plaintiff and the defendant at the same time. That is essentially what we're looking at here in a financial context.
The friction here is practically undeniable. On one side, you've got the buyer's interest, right? Their primary goal is to secure that property for the lowest possible purchase price. On the flip side, you have the seller's interests, and their goal is to achieve the absolute highest possible sales price. Imagine asking a seller's agent if you should pay less. Yeah, good luck with that. It is practically, mathematically, and psychologically impossible for one single firm to maximize the financial outcomes for both of these parties simultaneously without an inherent conflict of interest. Someone is likely going to compromise, or the firm's advice might just become unconsciously biased toward getting the deal closed so they can collect that sweet commission.
Now, the industry is actively trying to shine a light on this practice. Take a look at the SASB metric IFRS 510A.1. This falls under the topic of transparent information and management of conflict of interest. This standard essentially forces firms to publicly report exactly how much brokerage revenue they actually made specifically from these dual agency transactions. By isolating and reporting this specific revenue stream, investors can clearly see how much of a firm's profits are completely reliant on these ethically complex dual representation deals.
Section 3. The appraisal trap. The illusion of objectivity. So while sales brokerage is one major area of risk, the standards point us directly to a second, equally critical conflict area: valuation and appraisals. To really grasp the risk here, we have to establish the baseline expectation. Appraisal services are officially defined as the act or process of developing an opinion of value. For an appraisal to be worth the paper it's printed on, it requires absolute objectivity. Banks, investors, local governments, they all rely on these appraisals to be a cold, hard, unbiased look at what a property is actually worth in the current market. But here is the specific conflict that pops up within these massive, multi-service organizations. Can you truly be objective when your organization's paycheck depends on the deal? Just imagine a firm is tasked with providing an objective appraisal for a property, But that very same firm is simultaneously generating revenue from arranging the financing, providing consulting services, or brokering the sale of that exact same property. The incentive to, let's say, slightly inflate or adjust the appraisal to ensure the larger, way more lucrative financing or sales deal actually goes through. That's a massive structural risk.
What's really interesting here is how the reporting standards tackle this. Firms are required to track the sheer volume of their activities, like the total number of appraisals provided. But the standards go a lot deeper. Under metric IFRS 51A.2, firms actually must disclose the total revenue generated from transactions, like brokerage or financing, where they also provided the appraisal services for that same property. It specifically scrutinizes this cross-pollinated revenue to expose potential bias. It's basically a way of asking the firm, hey, how much money are you making off of deals where you were also the one setting the price?
Section 4. The cost of negligence, when professional integrity fails. So, what does this all mean? Why does this matter to you, to the broader market, or to investors? Well, because when professional integrity fails, the fallout isn't just a bad PR day, it is catastrophic financial and legal liability. When a firm tries to juggle multiple services and fails in its duty of care, the legal proceedings stack up incredibly fast. The industry standards specifically track lawsuits and regulatory actions for negligence, malpractice, data security breaches, and at the absolute extreme ends, fraud, corruption, and bribery. When a firm is representing both sides of a deal or appraising a property they are actively trying to sell, the margin for error and honestly the temptation for malpractice just skyrockets.
So how does the financial world actually measure this failure? They look at metric IFRS 510A.3, the total amount of monetary losses. This right here is the ultimate metric investors look at when trust breaks down and the lawsuits hit. It quantifies the exact financial damage a company suffers as a direct result of legal proceedings tied to professional integrity and duty of care.
And the standard is incredibly strict about what counts here. The documentation specifically states, losses shall include all monetary liabilities to the opposing party or to others, including fines and other monetary liabilities in card. This means whether it's a massive settlement paid out to a client who was wronged in a dual agency deal, a civil judgment for a totally biased appraisal, or severe regulatory penalties and fines from the government, the whole shebang gets tallied up. These financial penalties aren't just the cost of doing business. No way. They are massive red flags indicating to the market that there is a systemic corporate governance failure going on within that firm.
Section 5. Transparency and managing risks. Standardizing the solution.
Because these risks are so incredibly high, industry standards demand that firms systematically manage them to restore and maintain market trust. Firms are required to detail the exact internal policies and disciplinary procedures they implement. This includes formally notifying all employees of strict ethics codes, conducting regular, rigorous training on how to identify these exact conflicts, and most importantly, enforcing compliance. This means you have to have active mechanisms for internal reporting, like whistleblower channels for business ethics concerns. And you actually have to conduct real investigations with real disciplinary procedures when a conflict of interest is suspected.
Ultimately, the industry consensus is that sunlight is the best disinfectant. Firms are required to publicly disclose material issues regarding their real estate transactions. If they're acting as a dual agent, they have to disclose the counterparties, explicitly outline their fiduciary duties to both sides, and clearly state any potential conflicts. And they have to do the exact same thing for appraisals, transparently declaring if an appraisal was conducted by a related party or if their fees were contingent on a deal closing. By putting it all out in the open, they aim to mitigate both the perceived and actual conflicts.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a final provocative thought. We've seen how massive firms benefit from offering multiple services, right? And we've seen the strict reporting rules that are designed to keep them honest. But as long as a firm's overarching profits intrinsically rely on playing both sides of the fence, on selling, appraising, and managing the exact same assets, can we ever truly legislate complete objectivity? It's kind of the ultimate tension in the modern real estate landscape. So next time you look at a city skyline, ask yourself, who is really sitting on the other side of the table? Thanks for joining me on The Explainer today. See you next time.